Hello, everyone, and welcome to Peter and Debra are doing a podcast with me, Debra Alcock-Tyler, and him, my podcast pal, Peter One Less. Try saying that when you've had a gin and tonic. And apparently our podcast producer, Jose, so many P's, tells us that it's our 70th episode. And I just find that completely staggering to think that what the hell have we found to talk about for 70 episodes? Anyway, Peter, how have you been?
Very good, thank you. It's been hot here, but we're recording on Tuesday, and Taunton is hosting a T20 international between India women and England women. So we've got international cricket in the town. So as you would imagine, it's a bit wet and a bit cold, a lot colder than it was. But hopefully there'll be a good game this evening. I'm wrapped up in my Bartlett for America sweatshirt because I've been rewatching The West Wing. Are you a West Wing fan?
Oh, such a West Wing fan. I have watched The West Wing it's 10 seasons, isn't it?
Seven seasons.
Seven, that's it. From beginning to end, 3 times. That's really how much I love it. Yeah. So tell me, what's it been making you think of, Peter?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing how many of the themes are resonant today. So I've just watched, I think it's episode 14 or 15 of the first season, and it's the one where a murderer is condemned to death, and the president has to agonize over whether to allow this to happen or to commute the sentence. And he's thinking not just of himself, but the legacy he leaves and the difficulty he would leave for future presidents if he intervened on a whim to because he doesn't believe in capital punishment. And it's a brilliant and very moving episode.
Well, I think I remember in that episode, doesn't he have, because he's Catholic, isn't he, Bartlett?
Yes.
And doesn't he have a Catholic priest in the office? And the Catholic priest calls him by his name. And then he says, please call me Mr. President. And the priest says, why?
Yes.
And he says, because it reminds me of the weight of the job. And actually, I think something like that, if some of our lot were reminded of the weight of the job, they might behave a bit better. But anyway, carry on.
No, that's right. And through the episode, and each episode is only 40 minutes, but they pack so much in. There's a Quaker, there's a rabbi, and there's a priest, and he actually talks to the Pope as well, that are indicating to him that the state doesn't have the right to take another life, but ultimately it's a political decision and a constitutional decision, and he allows the death to take place. And then at the end of the episode, the local priest who is with him says, would you like me to take your confession? And he says, yes, please. And it's that, and that's just one episode, but there's, even in the ones I've already watched, there's episodes about that references virus, personal data, immigration. These are the issues that were kind of rolling around, and these first ones were made, must be about the turn of the century, mustn't it?
Oh,
I would think.
No, yeah.
But it's great. It's great television.
Oh, it's such great television. It really is, and in a way, it's also quite sad television, because it shows you a kind of politics and a kind of people in politics who you wish it was like. You know, where you see them struggling with integrity, and you see the challenges of, you know, trying to make the right decision against the political decision and stuff like that. And you really genuinely feel that these are good people trying to do a good thing for the most part. And it's a pity, because one just doesn't get that sense of that in, well, any other governments in the world, I think, never mind just ours.
There was when these episodes were first coming out, I was Director of Strategy and Communications at the Department for Education, and my press secretary was called DJ, and the press secretary in the West Wing is CJ.
CJ, yeah.
And he always used to describe how he was CJ, and he always said that I was Toby, and I had no idea who Toby was because I didn't. This was around about the time Bertie was born, and I had no time to watch television or anything else apart from kind of work and try and be some sort of a dad at home. So I missed The West Wing for years and years. But he would always reference people in our directorate by the names of characters in the West Wing. So all of that's been coming back to me, and it also then reminded me of some of the communication challenges that we had in the education department then. And have you seen the latest from the Department for Education with the GC Gemma Collins?
Yes, I have.
So they brought Gemma Collins from The Only Way Is Essex to march into the Department for Education and what's going on here for the kids then, and have an interview with Bridget Phillipson, and it's absolutely cringeworthy, and as you can imagine, has gone down like a cup of cold sick with particularly with special needs parents, I think, who feel that this trivializes some of the massive challenges that education faces at the moment. At the same time, those who are arguing for the campaign say we're all talking about it, and the purpose was to shine a light on the fact that there are other ways of getting an education than just going to university. Though quite why they chose Gemma Collins, I don't know, because I don't think she went anywhere. If she was a kind of exemplar of post-16 vocational education, that might have been a better message. But
I think it's one common theme of this government, though, Peter, is that its comms is absolutely terrible, and it doesn't seem to get any better. You know, it's well-meaning good stuff that this government is undoubtedly doing doesn't really hit the headlines because they manage their comms so badly. Do you not think?
Probably. I don't think that I would have engaged Gemma Collins in this particular way at this particular time, because effective comms is about, well, who are you trying to reach, who's conveying the message, and are they receiving the message? So I don't think those three things lined up in this particular bit of communication. Having said that, they want to get the message out to many more people than they're hearing at the moment, their message, and they want to connect with audiences beyond the kind of usual suspects. And it did make me think that a lot of comms these days is organized around numbers of engagement and reach. And I did have, as one of the campaigns that I was responsible for in around about, must have been 1999, 2000, was David Blunkett's desire to promote post-16 vocational education. And we ran a TV advertising campaign that was called Don't Quit Now, Things Are About to Get Interesting. And it was to try and showcase on the television, of course, it was the communication markets were nothing like as fragmented as they are now, but to try and illustrate in a positive way and to nudge parents and young people to see that there are other routes to learning beyond going to university.
Although, can I say something? Sorry, can I say something about that, Peter? Because yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true, but honestly, there's a massive class divide in it, because I don't know for a fact, so somebody might write in and correct me, but I'm fairly sure they don't promote vocational training in private schools. They don't, there's a certain class of people who we wouldn't go to Eton and have somebody come along and say, right, let's talk to you about plumbing or being an electrician or a tree surgeon or a landscape gardener or something. And this is what worries me about people saying that you don't have to go to university. Of course you don't, but there's just a little bit of me that thinks, but what we're doing is we're reserving university, so we're almost squashing the desire of people who wouldn't normally have access to those routes.
That's
what I worry about.
So our messaging was not don't go to university, do something different. It was education and opportunity and skills. There are skills which are exciting and interesting, and it was and the way in which sort of comms worked, the contrast I was going to sort of try and make was that I think we were taking a longer term view of trying to nudge public opinion and context into seeing that there were a variety of qualifications and skills which young people could be engaged in beyond 16 that weren't just your kind of academic courses, and we were very much measured on our ability through these messages to adjust attitudes and opinions, but it cost an absolute fortune for minuscule changes and had nothing like the visibility and the impact and talking points that this Gemma Collins thing had. So I don't know if one is better or worse than the other, but this kind of combination of going back and rewatching The West Wing, putting myself back in comms days and thinking about what did communications look like, and this is just about when the internet is starting, so lots of it is kind of mass messages on the TV, and we would definitely had these kind of audacious beliefs that if we showed these adverts over and over again year after year, we would be able to shift the entire context of the public debate.
But the trouble is, it's all the unconscious shit that still comes at you, Peter. So, it seems to me that Gemma Collins is a highly intelligent woman. There's no question in my mind that she's really bright, and she's sassy, and she's got a way about her. She knows what she's doing in the world. But by using Gemma, who has a particular regional accent, which is not associated with, necessarily high flying. Do you know what I mean? In other words, it's like stereotyping. Yeah. It's like, somebody who doesn't talk. I would have been so much more impressed if it had been, I don't know, Eddie Redmayne or something, or somebody who's like really posh already.
Yes,
who came in. Hugh Grant.
I see what you mean.
You see what I mean? It's like just reinforcing the type that non-university type work. That's a really clumsy way to explain it, but that's for the common people, the less well-educated people, the less well-off people, the not particularly bright people. That's the message you get all the time. And of course, we know, my brother-in-law was a gas engineer. Bloody hell, the amount of studying he had to do in order to come up with that. I remember a friend of mine, when her daughter was little, said to me, God, I really hope she doesn't grow up to be a hairdresser because she'd love playing with people's hair. There's still this kind of thing, like these professions are not successful professions, or they're not worthy of and like the clever people go to university and they earn more. And so I totally support the fact that I would like the narrative to be all jobs have value. Well, not quite all jobs. I question some of banking jobs and the old government job. But, it's like the fact that you are a bank manager is no more valuable to society than the fact that you're a plumber. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we need all of these things and they all should be valued. And what makes me so sad is we were getting there during the pandemic. All of a sudden, people began to realise that supermarket workers and waste disposal personnel and, all those kind of things that normally completely get ignored, suddenly they really mattered. And then as soon as the pandemic's over, we're right back to the age-old attitudes. And I despair, I really do.
Yes, well, who are we? It then comes back to what's the message that they're trying to convey, and who are they aiming it at?
Yeah, exactly. Go into bloody Eton and tell them to become plumbers and electricians. Then I'll believe you.
Yeah, but that's actually, is that the most urgent communication challenge in education at the moment? We've got 1 million. Young people not in education, employment and training, and actually we need to connect with them and help them see and understand that there are opportunities, but then the comms has to line up with the policy. And that was where I really enjoyed that time working with David Blunkett and bringing policy and comms together, and you felt that you were illustrating something that had a reality to it, and one of the problems here was that they had someone delivering a message, but the reality of the policy that everyone had been talking about was the reforms to special educational needs, and those two things weren't lining up with each other.
Well, it's interesting as well because that part of the problem is that young people are perceiving the opportunities aren't there. I watched something on the news last week, I forget when now, when they were interviewing some of these young people, and like one lad had sent off 500 applications for jobs and had not even had a response in most times. So there's also a massive disconnect between the opportunities that are there and the young people who are looking for work. And part of it, of course, is because you kind of like governments are caught in this double bind in a way, but it's partly their own fault because they don't want any of us to retire. They want us to keep on working, keep on paying taxes forever. But if we don't retire, then there's no opportunities for younger people. The whole system kind of gets stuck, doesn't it? So sort of like, on the one hand, they're saying, keep on working until you're 70 at least and putting up the pension aid accordingly. And, it's like by the time my nephews come to retire, the retirement age will be 80 or something ridiculous. And at the same time, they're complaining about the fact that there aren't enough opportunities for young people. So it's the lack of joined up thinking, I think, is the issue for me, Peter. The disconnect between young people and opportunities and education and all the rest of it. And then, older people and employment and welfare and stuff. I mean, I don't have the answer, but, it's very disconnected. And I think they could benefit from taking a slightly more holistic approach and maybe letting us older people retire younger when we want to, so that it creates the space for the youngsters.
Yeah. Though I don't believe there's a finite amount of work to be done out there, and with the right incentives and opportunities, then there's work. There's more than enough work for us.
Yeah, I also
maybe Andy Burnham will have a new narrative on all of this, which will make great sense and will be compelling.
Well, he's got to win that seat first, hasn't he?
Yes.
Anyway, what else has been going on?
Well, there was another communications thing which you and I had a bit of an exchange around offline, which was this merger between the Felix Project and FareShare.
Yeah.
And they're going to call themselves Felix, which sounds like a cat food. I was quite surprised because I kind of feel like I know what FareShare is, and I'm not sure I did know in quite the same way.
No, I'd never heard
Felix
of
is, but I assume that there's been a huge amount of research that's gone into whether and what the name should be. Reminds me a bit of Age UK and Age Concern merged together, didn't they? And I think I can't remember if they're now completely Age UK, but you still see renegade Age Concern shops around the place. So what do you think about names?
Well, it struck a couple of questions in my mind. Firstly, we people have an obsession with the names of charities, the names of companies, and all the rest of it. And there's always this thing about, your name doesn't say what you do. And I was like, well, the name IBM didn't say what they did. BP doesn't say what it does, unless you actually say British Petroleum. I mean, Tesco's doesn't say what it does, so it's not actually necessary for a name to describe your organisation, provided that you have a strong enough brand so people just automatically know that, you're a supermarket or what have you. There's also, I was very struck by, it's such a charity story. And what I mean by that is, obviously, I've only read the article and seen what the spokespeople have said about it. But it appears to me they chose to call it Felix because of a young man who had inspired the Felix Project in the first place.
Okay.
And that they felt there was an emotional resonance, with him and all the rest of it. And I sort of thought to myself, that's so smacks of we're honouring a person and a history rather than necessarily what's going to take the organisation forward for the future. I mean, they would argue they had all those conversations, it happened, but it just really made me smile about the arguments I've witnessed around charity, boardrooms about what should be called, or is our name good enough? And so often it comes down to, well, we were founded by Jeremy, and so Jeremy's name must be in it, even though the work of the charity bears very little resemblance to what Jeremy set out to do in the first place. So it's kind of this, I do think we as in our sector get a little bit too hung up sometimes on, the rich history that we have, and sort of forget that, it's what's that, there's a famous phrase, isn't there? Honour the past, but don't live in it. Is that, it's really okay to recognise your achievements, but actually our jobs, certainly as chief executive and board, is about preparing the organisation to be fit for the future. That's our job. And if we're not constantly thinking about 5 years' time, 10 years' time, again, you think about how people try and attract volunteers, or, the constant messaging, how we message, and we're forgetting that younger people are becoming older people. Younger people are becoming our managers and our donors and our supporters. And these younger people had a very different experience to us younger people. And yet how many charities are really taking that seriously and thinking about, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, lots of our donors have gone on to another, hopefully better place. And who's going to come in to replace them, and what things matter to those people?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the same stuff. And, so I would always say to charities, absolutely honour the past, be proud of what you've achieved, because it matters. And also it helps to inspire you and remind you that you can change the world. But don't be stuck in it. The most important thing is about what's coming up in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. Anyway, that's what struck me about that story.
Childline is really interesting in this context, because lots of adults now and people who have money to donate called Childline when they were children, or remember Childline being set up by Esther Rantzen, and have an emotional affinity and an understanding as to what Childline is. And so, in a way, woe betide anyone who changes or loses that brand. At the same time, young people increasingly don't think of themselves as children, and hear about Childline when they're at primary school, because the issues and challenges and the whole notion of kind of prevention is getting earlier and earlier down the age range. So for 14, 15, 16-year-olds in desperately difficult situations of one kind or another, what am I going to call Childline? That's for the young kids. So so do you stick with the brand that's good for fundraising and has that kind of resonance and works increasingly with the primary kids, but doesn't necessarily resonate with what the original target market is? Or do you switch to something else, or create a kind of older version of Childline and call it something different? There are people who have written theses and kind of had ideas about this sort of stuff for over the years, and it hasn't quite changed. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's a very big deal to change the name of something.
It so comes to the point, though, isn't it? Which is about who are we there to serve and who is the priority. I mean, we have lots of people saying the donors matter the most. It's their money that they're giving to you for something they want you to do. So the donors have to be the priority. And others who say, the donors wouldn't be there if there weren't these people in need. And so our job is to serve people in need. And there's this constant tension, isn't there? Because the comms to the two separate groups are very different.
Yeah.
It's when people say, what's your core message? It's well, it depends who's asking. If you're high net worth, this is my core message. If you're corporate, this is my core message. If you're trust or foundation, this is my core message. If you're Mrs. Jones at number 22, this is my core message.
Yes.
It's very difficult to have one core message because your audiences are so different. And I think that's very unique to our sector, actually, is that, with businesses, there's a consumer and there's a shareholder. And the shareholder message is relatively simple. We're doing everything within the law, and here's the amount of money we're making. Whereas the message to the consumer is going to be more about quality or price or, status or what have you. Whereas in our sector, we've got messages to donors, the public, the media, our volunteers, our beneficiaries, our staff, our trustees, so when you think about it, running a charity is so complex. It's amazing any of us come out sane. I'm not sure we do. Look at the pair of us.
No, that's absolutely true, and you don't want to overcomplicate it, because there is a sophistication there, but at the same time, you need to keep coming back to what's the simple purpose of what we're about, don't you? Yeah. I mean, one of the things with comms I remember fondly from being a comms director is how many people think they know and understand communications, and notwithstanding the research, will tell you what consumers want and need. So we had someone on our board who would always interfere in what adverts and so on looked like, because he had an A-level in art, and that was his qualification.
Well, it just reminds me so much. I had a finance director at DSC for a very long time, 17 years, Mr. Satinder Singh Pujji. I absolutely adored him. He was the most wonderful man. And he worked with us 17 years, and then he got ill, unfortunately, and couldn't work anymore, because otherwise he would still be with us. He was that kind of an employee. Well, so many of them at DSC are, actually. But anyway, he was always telling the marketing team what to do and what they were doing wrong. He was constantly, and it's like he just had it in his head that he didn't. And it's actually marketing and comms are the absolute classic where everybody assumes that we all know about marketing and comms without ever understanding that the vast majority of marketing and comms people are professionals who have degrees in it, who have trained in it, who have had to do some psychology in it as well. That it's not just like, I reckon this would work just because this is what appeals to me. And you just made me, you reminded of me of it so fondly. And I must just tell you one very funny little story. He went off to, his hair had gone very grey, and he was a little bit vain, as we all are. And so when he was in India, he got his hair dyed. And when he came back, I mean, it's so obvious, you know. So he suddenly he'd gone off with white hair and come back with brown hair. And so we all rather gently teased him about this and sort of said, you know, and he said, oh, I didn't do it. You know, it was a prank that was played on me by my cousin. You know, he pinned me down in the hairdressers and what have you. But what made me laugh is our marketing director, who also loves Satinder, made this giant poster which he stuck on the wall, and he showed. It was a picture of Satinder with his old hair, with his grey hair, and underneath it said, "Missing, last seen on a motorbike accompanied by a blonde." It was so funny. Anyway, maybe it's one of those things you had to be there, but yeah. Anyway, where were we?
I don't know. I had my hair dyed once. No, not more than once. Once, like at the hairdressers when I was a student. I had burgundy hair for a while.
Wow.
Not sure too many photos. Yeah, I don't think many photos remain of that. I did it in a wild moment and was sitting there, and a drip came off my head onto the paper, the magazine that I was reading while it was being done, and it was bright red, and I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? And then I did dye it green for the NSPCC at one point, but that was a spray and that only lasted a couple of days.
I mean, I think it's fine if chaps dye their hair, women do. It's just, it was like that kind of very blokey denial that I've done anything whatsoever to try and improve my appearance or to try and look younger. That's what made me laugh about it. Like, dyeing your hair, fine, go ahead, you know, do what makes you feel good. But it was not, I did it because I want to look good. You know, it's the whole, no, it was a prank played on me, I was pinned down. Anyway, our memories. And we still lost track of where we were, what we were talking about. I can't remember. Probably doesn't matter.
No, communications.
That was it.
And people who know about it and people who don't. I mean, the flip side of the person who knows nothing about communications but has got an A level in art are the people who know everything about communications and will win you awards for communication kind of campaigns or images of one kind or another, but for campaigns which have zero impact on what you're trying to say. They look beautiful, but don't actually work, and that can be a hazard to watch as well. So I guess like lots of aspects in the end you have to try and come back to the research and the evidence, and as I said at the beginning, who are we trying to communicate with, who is the communicator, and what do we want them to receive.
And message to our charity sector colleagues: respect the skills, experience and qualifications of your marketing and comms people, because they usually have them.
Yeah, I mean, another huge kind of tension or challenge, and I've taken different positions on this at different times in different campaigns, is what is the balance between awareness and income generation? And how much awareness do you need in order to create the conditions in which, and there's lots of science around all of this, so the propensity to give is really important. So you want to create an environment in which more people have a greater propensity to give at the moment when they're ready to give. And then you have communications which are about give us the money now, in the kind of Bob Geldof slamming the table sort of thing, and that can be quite a challenge to navigate through executive boards and boards of trustees. You know, what are the measurements for our campaign, and what is the balance between the context that we're trying to build versus the money that we need now? And of course, the money we need now is much easier to measure than the propensity to give and building the longer term context, unless you've got a lot of money. So we had some really lively arguments at the NSPCC about how explicit the call for cash should be, because there's evidence that some people will just be put off if you're too in the face about giving the money. But if you're rather too subtle about it, you can spend a lot of cash and then feel good about the fact that everyone feels warmly towards the charity, and you've won an award in this competition or other, but actually you've run out of money to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's always that battle. I think we've touched on this before on a previous episode, but that sort of thing about what works and what people are comfortable with are not always the same thing. Like there's always like, why do we always show pictures of people with dementia suffering?
Yeah.
Why don't we show pictures of people with dementia coping? Because pictures of people with dementia coping doesn't bring you in any money. That's the reality of it. And I think, and again, that's another thing we've spoken about it before, that charities have this real challenge, tension between what works and what people find annoying or patronizing or offensive or what have you. And, sometimes you have to make a really, really hard decision, and it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, my gut feeling is always, with money, you can change the situation of human beings, and that really should be your focus, to get in as much as you possibly can to deploy it so that you can change the conditions in which people end up with whatever condition it is or what have you. But that's not to say that people's sensitivities don't matter, because they do. But tough.
But there are also other communications campaigns where you're seeking to equip people with knowledge and understanding.
Also true.
How to spot the signs of a child who is at risk of sexual exploitation. That's a really legitimate and interesting communication challenge to try and execute at a mass level, so that more people feel more confident that they can spot, say, signs of exploitation. But it doesn't necessarily bring you in any money. But you've got to be explicit about how many of these campaigns can we afford to do versus
the others. That's highly right. Because I think we should, as charities, or most of us, should be trying the hardest we possibly can to solve the problem that we're dealing with, so to fix it. Is it Desmond Tutu? I'm never sure. I get all my quotes mixed up. It was he who said something like, our job is not to just fish people out of the river, it's to go upriver and find out why they were falling in. It's paraphrasing like mad. But I love that idea. I love this sense that, we're not just a sticking plaster or a gurney. We're actually up there saying, what the hell's going on up here? Let's fix this bridge that they're falling off, or whatever the thing happens to be.
Well, this is what the priest says to President Bartlett. He uses this analogy of someone sitting by the side of the river, knowing that the river is about to flood the town, and is so busy imagining that God is going to send a signal to save everyone, that he misses the signals.
Oh yeah, that helicopter and the boat.
That's right. And President Bartlett misses the rabbi and the Quaker, and there we are. And that's just one episode. So on that note, do you know what? I think I'm going to go and watch the next episode.
Yes. Oh, and I'm glad you reminded me of it, Peter, because you've made me want to go back and watch it now as well.
And if anyone else wants to watch The West Wing, then it is on Channel 4 on demand, once you get past all the adverts for Virgin Island.
Virgin Island, yes, which star the wonderful Bertie Waldner, who has now become like a proper social media star. What was it, Peter? You were telling me that he's number 10 or something in the world for. What's it called? Cosmic or Cosmo?
They sometimes show them on Have I Got News for You, Nigel Farage doing these sort of birthday messages to people. So you can have a message from Bertie on Cameo. And at the moment, because he's in this sort of extraordinary bubble of fame and love from people on TikTok, he's in the top 40 people in the world for delivering pep talks and birthday messages, and they are very good. But I am not promoting him.
No, but I should expect, Peter, him to do one for us for our birthday.
Well, you have to pay for it. Someone would have to pay for it, because he's there's no mates rate so far as Bertie's concerned. He is Mr. Capitalism.
Good for him.
All right, everyone. Then. Yeah, take care. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.